Our guest today is Atika Chohan, and let me give the quick LinkedIn bio intro, and then we'll go from there and we will talk about the real Atika. But professionally, it's great to have you here, Atika. Atika is widely known for penning Bollywood's most prestigious and inclusive, unflinching socio-political stories. So she's not your run-of-the-mill screenwriter, but she chooses her projects very carefully, and I think she's got a reputation for choosing stories and writing stories of a particular type. Atika has won immense critical acclaim for co-writing Chapaak, a film based on the life of acid attack survivor Laxmi. Her stellar work also includes Guilty from 2022, Margarita with a Straw from 2015, and Waiting from 2016. She started her journey as a print and a TV journalist. Atika wrote for the Hindu and CNN-IBN before she found her true calling in fiction writing, and graduated as a screenwriter from Pune's FTII, the Film and Television Institute of India, in 2008. She bagged herself a Best Screenplay nomination at the New York Indian Film Festival 2024 for the film Sahela. And she co-wrote with Raghuveer Joshi, and Jet Tattarsal. So thank you so much, Atika. I know it's the second time that you're with us this time. The last time it was specific to screenwriting, but this time what we are looking at is a slightly different frame of reference, and we are looking at a slightly different set of questions. But like I said, that was the LinkedIn intro. So tell us a little bit about the real you, where you started and how you landed up in writing and journalism first, and then how you landed up from there getting into fiction and writing stories instead of writing facts. So.
Hi, my name is Atika, as Chetan has taken a lot of pain to explain and some of the introduction to what I've done before. Is the voice clear? Because I'm here seeing some chats complaining about, am I clear, audible enough?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that's a great way to get into what we will be actually sort of unpacking later. But yeah, it was very tough for me from where I began. I used to be a journalist in Delhi. Why I chose screenwriting is something that, as I look back, it was like this fatal combination of, your portal opening on earth. I was just born in Old Delhi near a cinema theater, and I mean there are a few things that I now I'm very happily to be vulnerable about. So I don't hide these things in my bio or speaking about them with candor, because I think these are the things that after a few decades of practice, you realize that these are the things that gave you your specialization and not a film school that you did go to. Like the fact that I came from a very dysfunctional family, but I grew up close to a cinema, which was Rich Cinema in Old Delhi. So this was my way of, in that especially my early teens, a way to cope with whatever was happening in my life. So I just knew instinctively that every time I would watch cinema intently, it would give me peace. Or if I were reading, it would give me peace. So this was just, it became a coping mechanism in those early years without me having an academic understanding of why I do what I do. It was just also I would assume that these were safe things to do for a girl growing in a lower middle class socioeconomic strata in Delhi. And so perhaps a combination of those things, and I don't know how good I was at a writer, but I definitely had an antenna for picking human emotion from a very early age. And by the time I was like a young girl, let's say by the time I was 20, I had the right push of the hormones. I needed something to pour all of this into, and it started to emerge in the form of writing. And I had so many stories, and I knew that I was not meant for journalism, while I was very good at sort of being competent enough to write a quick copy for a news channel, for example, but instinctively, I knew that it was fiction that I needed a release in. And so I was like hanging with friends. I would go for like theater workshops because I studied at Delhi University. I did 5 years of literature. I don't see why anyone should be keen, but all of this also happened because I don't know if I was great at those things, but that was what I wanted to do. So I was in Ramjas and Hindu for 5 years of literature, English literature. And for me, it wasn't even the language that I was so drawn to, but the access to stories that I could read in those 5 years of literature. Like I charted everything. And for me, what it did for me was that it brought so much company to my loneliness and an alienation that I otherwise could not express. So I think before therapy, there was literature. And so I came from that generation of people, because it's only now recently that I can buy expensive therapy. And earlier, what would we do? We would read. So I remember like with the fury that I have felt in my gut, with which I may have read the first time, perhaps a Marquez or like even a Midnight's Children, or the instinct with which I have picked those books, and the way I kind of like devoured them. So the hunger came from somewhere else. And I think so. I think a combination of those things, which I'm now so grateful for, like the placement of me near a theater, and I have seen like Meri Meherbaniya and like Sagar and Sharabi and like stuff like that at home, and I have like taken it all in. And I remember like actually, honestly, like a lot of people assume that if we are like writing this kind of literature, or like this kind of literary cinema, or like meaningful cinema. Some of the craziest things that inspired me to write was actually when I saw Hum in theater. And it was for me like I had not seen anything like that, because I took back some of those things that I saw on canvas, and I tried to imagine that what was happening at my home. And I think that is where the first time I became a filmmaker, because I coped. And so I was like, this is exciting. So I think that may have happened at that age. And therefore, there was a very deep instinct to go and find a way to do this forever, because this was what I was okay at. And having said that, then the tough journey of how to practically find your way around this. So, of course, the first jobs in Delhi around for somebody who studies literature, everyone would know, is media, because in Delhi, that's a city that caters to that sort of basic competence. So I did get lucky. I did get those first few jobs. Wanted to write on art, but I realized बहुत ही gatekeeping है. Like किस बाइस की लड़की, like it was impossible to get through those gate. It was also gate kept. Like there were all stalwarts art critics who were like not going to die. They were all like pushing 60, but they wouldn't have died. And I was like, there's no chance I'm getting a copy. And I was like, I think I wouldn't have gotten those jobs, because I did like try to curate, did try to assist a few curators, hoping I'd get some jobs, but all I could do was like basically get praise for research. So I was like, this is gonna take like a decade, and it's not also going to pay, so I'll have to figure some other way out. And so willy-nilly, without actually wanting to become one, I became a journalist, because at least it would pay, even though it wasn't great, but it would pay. And then with that logic, I started like building one block after the other, knowing in my heart that what makes me tick is fiction. Around this time, when I was like, of course, like writing on art culture and like, basically city beats in 2-3 places that I worked at. Around this time, like I got a chance to go on the screenplay of Fight Club. I think that I think is a very seminal point in when I read the screenplay of Fight Club, and I had read the Chuck Palahniuk book, and then I like stayed with Fight Club for a while, and it was my most favorite film around that year, 2004, 2005, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
And that just like, I don't know, I was obsessed. It was just my like I was just excited about how did somebody adapt that book into this film. And it just became like a personal frenzy of a kind that I can't explain. It's I wish I had like, a lot of I wish I had like some really literary examples to give. Like, no, it wasn't Satyajit Ray, it wasn't Ghatak. I'm not saying they're not masters, but it was like the things that inspired me were these. These were actually like the drugs that I needed to cope with what was happening in my reality. And then these were the pieces of literature, films, and so they came into my timeline, and then we collided. And then I was like, I need to do this. This is just crazy. And how to do this. So while actually held a day job at CNN-IBN in Delhi, and I actually wasn't doing that bad in that company. They're still like my bosses and my colleagues and everyone they're still like really good friends of mine. They were very empathetic bunch, and they were very smart. So but I just, while I held that job, I took the FTII exam and I got through. And then came the tougher part of abhi इसके फीस कौन देगा. So like ये
Yeah.
हो गया, अभी यहाँ तक तो पहुंच गए, अभी यहाँ से आगे कैसे. So हर बार like there was always like, best part was that there was always, now as I look at it, each time there was a character in conflict situation staring at you. And then you would solve it. You would solve that one phase of your life, then you get to the next phase. And that's how you would take those risks and keep moving on. Each time in like sort of having some kind of like a really foolish um, faith in the fact that something would work out, because this should work out, because why shouldn't it? And then with that logic, you come to Bombay. I was in Bombay with 5,000 rupees in my bank. Seriously, like this was the year 2008. And those early years were very, very tough. This is a very different time that we are seeing in the industry. I always say this is one of those really this has become a money dialogue of mine in all the interviews. I became a screenwriter because before it was fashionable to be one. Because I literally had started in the year 2008, 2009 in Bombay, when it was, there was nothing. There was just these small groups of people. And Baki, it was all like just Masti and Masti 2 and Grand Masti 3. And basically that kind of work, or there were these small clouds, where
Right.
it happened like small pockets of people who would do some interesting, intelligent work, which obviously wouldn't pay. And in the beginning, it was all about exploitation. There was no contract. Like if you would mention contract, people could get offended. So, so from there to find, maybe perhaps after like months, finding one person with whom you could make some kind of like a intelligent sort of like collaboration with, even if it was just repartee. And then find like a point in time where one could like make a collaboration in a film where they said there is no money, would you like to come on board, because we think you have that's how I got Margarita with the Straw. I'd done some work before. My first job in Bombay was I wrote first 4 episodes of Rishta.com, which is a Yashraj Sony TV, then Yashraj Sony show. So what that did was it gave me a credit. A credit in any industry helps you build on reaching out more than your speculative work. Sometimes your released work credit helps more. So I had the beginner's luck, and on the basis of that, some people who had worked on the episodes which I wrote happened to be people who were working with Shonali Bose on her film Margarita with a Straw. They had seen my work on paper, and they met me and they said, you have a Delhi vibe. We want this Delhi vibe in our film. So that's how it happened. And each time, I think, even till recently, this has not left me. Like, I find it people are not convinced when I say this, because they think I may be like overselling my struggle, but I still sometimes have to do sample scenes for people even after like so many years of work behind me and so much work I've done. But I actually don't mind it. I find it I find myself amused, because I know why they say it, because I'm not a man, And I know that most of you will be like, no, it's not about being a man and a woman. I already can see faces and see that thing happening. But well, it will take someone to really understand what happens when you are a woman. So that may be the larger pretext of how we got into these things. Then it has always been one project at a time, and it has always been the struggle. And I have never felt like I have arrived. I have never felt too comfortable. I don't think I have even reached my full potential yet as a writer. I think, but what I've done is I've just held on to, sort of one block after the other, and I have moved on. And in the process, in these 16 years, I may have built something which now looks like a filmography. The only thing that I know, whenever everyone compliments me for my voice or my choice of films or collaborations, I don't say much. I think writers here would really understand that sort of like embarrassment that when someone compliments you like this, there is no other way. Like, it's not like I'm doing that as a conscious way of like looking like a cool person to you. That's an accident. I am just doing what I can do. Like, it's not like I don't want to do that Sajid Nadiadwala film and become really rich and buy a flat in Bombay. But I'm unable to work on those films because they fire me, because I start telling them ki, भाई तुम्हारे childhood में क्या हुआ था? तो then they're like, चलो तुम निकलो यहाँ से. So it's mostly things like those at work, right? So you are auto edited out of things which could lead to more money, but shitty work as it looks like. But idea is to go into a situation where if one were to build on one's, I think a more adult way to be in these situations is to find a way where art itself becomes lucrative, because why not? Because it has happened before and it's happening all over the world, and it should happen for this country too. And there are some really good examples around us, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I have actually been part of some of those. So things are not as dreary as they used to be. Things got really dreary this last 1 year when market dried up, when there was no work left in the OTT industry. And the OTT industry at this moment also is kind of, we would call it a bandukan only, but because all the OTT work that's happening right now is mostly franchisee work. That, so there is actually the little bubble that there was is all now burst. So things are like now fine. I think it was the impact of many things like COVID, the pandemic viewing was very different. The theatricals were suddenly taken out. Then the theatricals returned, but they came back in that very hyper-masculine cinematic, as a hyper-masculine cinematic. And then what it did to the business, how some of us were like completely, some of us got too much work and then some of us completely phased out. So I think there is a balance and correction that's happening as we go, which is this is the thing, this is what maybe perhaps is an advantage for me having had an early start into this line of work, is that I am so used to this. Like, I never took the highs really seriously, which is why this low point is also like I'm sitting it out. Like, I'm like, it's fine. Achhi baat hai, kam hai, so now is the time to catch up on that reading. But so this is pretty much 16 years of my life as a screenwriter. If there's any second question, which I haven't covered in this, so yeah.
There's lots of questions that I had, but clearly this is I think the way the industry has changed over the last few years has been for the better, and we can say that there's been a bit of a boom, especially for screenwriting. Now, of course, within that there is a lot of nuance, and there are particular areas which might have seen more action, and other kinds of writing which may have seen a dip. But the solid, the amazing thing to see is that you've stayed there and you've done things that give you a joy. By the way, there's a new film that's coming out in 3 days. I don't know if we can talk about it yet.
I mean, I can talk about it. That yes, it's a film called Ulaj, which is a thriller, but also about the journey of a girl who's caught within the traps of lies and deceit within it. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be associated with the project. I'm pretty proud of the way it has turned out to be. I've managed to create something in the mainstream which is very nuanced gender take. So I was pretty excited about it in the capacity that I was allowed and whatever there was room for. But I'm very happy to have worked with Janvi and the producers, because it was a very shockingly good experience. So,
Oh, nice. Great, great. And is this a theater release? Is this going to be OTT?
It's a theatrical releasing
Oh,
on
nice.
the 2nd of August. It's looking really good. We have had like a great trailer release, which is something now that's how they evaluate. We had like within 3 days, 40 million views, etc. So we're looking at
Excellent.
something which might be good for an intelligent mainstream film. This is great. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. Great. Uh, so tell us about the some of the things that you think are common as far as story is concerned. Like that again, and I'm going to leave it open, but like the 3-act structure is something that people talk about, and script writing in its structure itself is much more rigid and much more tightly defined, as opposed to a novel or a short story, which can be much more experimental and it can drift all over the place. But now when you watch a show, it really holds you, and there are tricks that people have to use, or a film. They really hold you, and there are ways in which the script writer is basically at the heart of that whole process of being able to keep the reader, or the viewer in this case, engaged. So tell us about that engagement, and how do you hold the viewer, and how do you make sure the viewer doesn't drift off to something else?
Uh, uh, there's only one. I'm not in disagreement with what you said, Chetan, but I really believe that actually more experimentation happens in books than it can happen in.
That is what I said. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
actually, so the form that the kind of lends itself to more fluidity. And I'm really envious of authors who can do their own game on it. Like if I could give an analogy, it's like you're playing you're playing a game of tennis at most, because you are actually just playing with your, or like one reader.
Yeah.
But when you are like writing a screenplay, you are basically playing a cricket match. So there is a team at work which basically like sees you through, and it's never one person's performance, while everyone does try to do their best. So therefore that nature of cinema itself, because it's a collaborative and it's like the understanding of a lot of factors, which is, I feel, something that maybe either you're born with, something you cultivate over a period of time, and also your experiential sort of something you build experientially on. Like you actually have to work on a film and write a film and see it getting made, and then it's a muscle that comes with experience.
Right.
Why not saying that of course every writing would be the same, like even if it's like writing a novel. So if I were to actually just identify, while I'm actually I've written my own treatments and stories, which I have then adapted them into screenplays. I have not really written a novel, so I don't see myself. This is what I told Jessica also. I don't see myself exactly as an expert. I just see myself as a friend here who works in similar industry. So when I say all this, everyone needs to be a little sort of like easy on me if I'm saying something wrong. But it's not wrong or right. Like it's just my observation that it's possible that what we do as screenwriters is something more mathematical. And so for us, the maths is like is something that is it's a primary tool. So when I say the maths, I feel the grammar is therefore defined very in very definite sort of structural movements. So when it's an act 3 structure, or now it's become like an 8-part structures lately. So while I know that those structures are needed for all of us, all the screenwriters mostly, I think that would be the same for authors. I'm sure they also follow some structure. All of us instinctively do follow at some point, even if some of us have now become have called, maybe I don't know if people have revised Aristotle's Poetics also, because I'm sure there are parts of it which may be carrying something latent which needs to be revised or called out. But having said that, like I really have believed in the Poetics. Like whatever the basic structure or understanding of drama and human emotion, etc., that's laid out in the structural understanding of a tragedy and a comedy, I feel really still works. There is no other way around it. Having said that, all of this needs to be rethunk from time to time, with respect to then again, like individually, what perspective do I hold towards the world? For example, I think Ursula Le Guin has given a very different understanding of what her understanding of a hero's journey is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she actually looks at it as a, so it's if someone can remind me what is that word, it's a she calls it the basket or something, like where you pick, if someone else knows it, they can correct me or help me. So basically, if you read about it, after this, I'll send that link to everyone, what she calls it. So it's very different from the Campbellian theory of the
Right.
hero's myth. Is in that sense, what I know is that a lot of writers today are sort of like feeling it's a dated way of operating through the structure. All of
Right.
these structures that exist in the world, which have been either brought in by mythologists, academics, like, or what the Hollywood structure has always used with that Chris Wagler's, the breakdown of hero's journey. These are all screenwriting tools that have also derived themselves originally from the novel only. It's
All
not
right.
like they are disparate from that. It's like cinema is only 100-year-old art. Like
Yes.
it's an art that also derives itself from other forms like photography, or before that painting, or before that, so it's not like everything, the philosophy of it is now something new. We are what if there is a new philosophy, of finding it now. So it's all happening at the moment. So I feel structurally we all have pretty much the same tools in
Okay.
terms of cinema, and the kind of cinema you're doing, or the kind of genre that you are sort of dabbling in, or what is your natural style, will then kind of like dictate how experimental can you go.
Right.
There are all kinds of shows, like Madman in that sense does follow the classical journey of like building a story, but at the same time it is really fluid. Like it allows itself to go really deep into building character when it wants to.
Right.
But it has its own maths in place. Like that conviction comes from the author himself, So there is no one way of doing TV. When someone says there should be a cliffhanger, tell me
Somebody's
that.
asking if the term you're looking for is carry a bag.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, great.
So,
So yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying that, for example, there are so many episodes of Breaking Bad which may not have ended on a cliffhanger. They are
Right.
not overt cliffhangers. Like the basic way of saying कि यार हर episode cliffhanger पे end होना चाहिए. But कितने Breaking Bad के episodes होंगे जो cliffhanger पे exactly end नहीं हो रहे हैं. But they are like a spiritual high in some cases. They are like another. There are cold openings. These are all narrative devices that are there. You don't need me for that. It's all there on Google. You just like look it up. It's all there. You pick up a sit field. It's all there. It's all written out. Not everyone can become a screenwriter on the basis of reading a sit field. Is what I'm trying to say, that there is something original to what you have experienced.
Right.
And it will have a structure that's very inherent and original to you.
Right.
Find that within so every rule needs to be learned once so that one can unlearn it quickly. And then quickly try to find a voice that's yours. I honestly think there is no one way of doing it. What is the number one thing that I believe that is, I feel, a sacred rule for anything, is that it should not bore. It should not bore. It should hold you by your, jugular. So that I feel outside of that, I am not really like a big fan of following the rules to the T. But
Right. Okay.
only the reason why I may be able to say that with some confidence is because I have now a very deep intuitive knowledge of the structure. So because I've done it so many times and I do this every day, and
Sure.
a large part of, there's another thing I'd like to tell you about me, which may have worked in my favor, which I think may be helpful in this group of like 180 people. Get a lot of rejections. Like get as many rejections as you can, and each time that rejection is going to leave you really rich, because each time somebody tells you, when they have the courage to tell you that this sucks, believe me, you will gain so much more out of that than somebody who praises the fuck out of you, because that's of no value. You have no idea why they want. Sometimes you have written something really mediocre and it gets approved. And I have always come back home feeling like suspicious. There's something in my body that's saying that's not, that I don't know why that got through. And sometimes some makers or some directors or some co-writers have made me sort of like filled with wrath because they kept getting hostile at something which I thought was really good. But in the process, as a final outcome, we saw that in that friction, we created something as a third solution, which was something so powerful, which couldn't have come from either or, you know. So I feel that commitment to the process, which can only happen when you commit to, when you can develop a stamina for failure,
Right.
is where maybe perhaps good writing is.
Right.
Even like
Okay.
the fact that we all feel so committed and excited to our first drafts, and I have the same tendency. Like that is why I am the writer who tends to delay her first draft, because once I write it, I get very passionately attached to it. Uh, uh, Having said that, this great spiritual ability to be able to put that aside and think of it as the first kachra that needed to come out of your mind for that particular theme, and then to
Right.
start all over again with this new inherent knowledge of what you now know emotionally about your story already,
Right.
and then to write, you will just see how you write differently. So always embrace failure. Writing, good writing is nothing but your stamina for rewriting. I feel that's the only thing that I know. I mean, that's the only thing that works. Baki sab kuch to matlab upar niche hai. Like, you know,
All right. So you are coming to the retreat in September, and you're going to be teaching a course. So in the course, you're going to be talking about structure. We'll be talking about a whole bunch of other things as well. Maybe we can record small snippets of that and share it here. But what is going to be the heart of that interaction with those 8-10 people?
I think what I mean, quickly, just to give a quick
Yes.
nugget
Yeah.
of what I want to do is, while everyone, of course, there will be basics of screenwriting, but I would want to, if I could, if we get enough participants in the first place, but if we get them, I would
We're
really.
already at 8, so we have only 4 seats left. So
Oh,
yeah.
lovely. So the idea is that they will have to do some homework before they come. So we will make sure that 2 weeks before the workshop, they have something that they're bringing in, because I would want them to actually work on their own idea while they are in that workshop for 3 days. It's while they can enjoy the luxury of being in that place or whatever. Sorry, they'll have to work hard on their ideas while they are there. So that can be a deterrent. Please don't participate, because I will want to see you work. And I would want to focus on like actually helping you understand, if I already have or I have read what you have written, for example, like there is, for example, a structural understanding or a narrative understanding of what you have. Let me help you understand, is that the most right, right narrative cloth for your story? Like, can you clothe it better?
Sure.
Is there something that you're not looking at? Then also because we'll have one-on-ones for me to be able to understand or assess or diagnose, what is it that you're hiding from as a person, that you're not able to evaluate your own like why is your final act not sort of summing up what's going on? So a lot of times, this first writer problem is that the third act is a bit of like a fizzle.
Okay. All right.
So
Great.
I feel that is something we can structure. The other thing that I think, because that's something that that's a person I am, and that's my specialization, which I've been told it has become of a sort, is that I gender lens. When I say gender lens, it doesn't mean that I make everything feminist or I make everything female heavy. I just redistribute power in scenes. Depending on who the protagonist is and what it should be like, and if are there. So I'll help you understand gaze. You don't have to it, but I'll help you redistribute power in a scene to every character. And like,
that's awesome.
Because you know, I've just I felt horrified, and I end up like laughing, no more than complaining out of anger. So many times I've seen mainstream films which are like which are so riddled with heteronormativity and like misogyny and unintentional, that you just like you're like laughing away, because you're like, who's अभी कौन इनको जाके बोले उधर भी काम मिलना बंद हो जाएगा, इधर भी काम मिलना बंद हो जाएगा. But it's hilarious how they are so oblivious to how blindly misogynistic some of these things are. So perhaps bringing in some basic work into, like our own conditioning, and then allowing that, what are the tools that you can possibly use to detect that?
Okay.
Perhaps I
All
can
right. I'm
invest.
going to jump in. Sorry, Atika. But we've already got 12 questions. Oh, how many?
Yeah.
16 questions, and we are running short on time. So I'm sorry
So
to
let's
cut you
just
off.
get into the questions. Yes, please.
Yeah. So there's 20 minutes. So I'm going to read them out. I'll just curate the questions so we're not repeating stuff. The first one is, as you guys have guessed, Atika will be at the retreat in September. She's teaching a course. So Dave, you can drop a link to the course. If any of you is interested, I saw some questions relating to how do you get started. That might be the answer you're looking for. The first question is, can you talk about novel to film adaptations? How much say do writers have, especially with a change in story from screen for screen from what they put in the book? And do writers get involved in the screenplay adaptation, or is it entirely the screenwriter's decision?
Uh, I'll answer the second part first. It's not a given that every time a novelist has to be a part of the room. Sometimes it's detrimental to the creation of the show because the writer may be too close to certain nuances which may not be work cinematically. So depending on what is that relationship, depending on what is the friction management, etc., it will change, it will differ. Having said that, some writers do find themselves participating in these rooms in really, like, with screenwriters in a really healthy way, and so especially with I've seen with work, with any work that is heavy on research or heavy on a certain experience where we cannot do without the original writer because it's coming from such a deep experience or a deep area of research that we need that person's guidance or anchoring from at each step of the writing, right? But with where also we can see that they have a healthy attitude towards the dramatic changes that are happening on the job. So that's one. This first part of the question is, what is the, sorry,
Creative control. So creative control, I think for writers, it's really limited and depends on the deal, right?
Yes, it depends on the deal. Like, I think most contracts right now, even if it is Naipaul, thank God he's not there now. But even so, best thing is to get into a contract with Naipaul, because that's what I'm trying to say. Sorry for sounding so morbid, but idea is to have somebody who will either allow this peacefully or will take the money and shut up, because it is impossible to then work with the writer's ego.
Yeah, that's what I've also heard from many screen agents, is that the writer is essentially not part of the scene once the show is made, unless like Atika said, it's an essential thing. Sunil has a question saying, have you had the urge to write a novel or short story?
Yes, but I will do that in my 50s. Like, I've given myself that time and an age, and when I would have made so much money that I can buy a little castle next to Chetan's, where I will come and like live and like.
I love how you describe it as a castle. When you come and see, तो you'll realize हमारे तो मिट्टी के कमरे बने हुए हैं. But they are cool. But yeah,
so yeah,
necessity is the mother of
I
invention.
do have a thing about it, but I don't want to. I want to do it really well, and I want to do it not like as a detour or an escape from the arduousness of what I am at. So I want to do it when it's very fulfilling. I feel so fulfilled with what I have done, and I feel I have like kind of proved myself. I don't feel that about myself at the moment. And then maybe I'll segue into it. But I do want to do it. But it's like 10 years in the making right now.
Lovely. Awesome. Can't wait to read that also when it comes out. Next question is from Pavitra Mohan. She's saying, as someone who writes in English and is looking to write a screenplay in English, are there any opportunities for me in India?
Of course there is. Like, there are all screenplays are in English. I write my screenplays in English. Yes, I do my dialogues in Hindi. Now Final Draft also allows you to do your, now it has introduced Devanagari. So yes, some of us who were like Hindi belt writers are obviously able to sort of write their screenplays in Hindi, which I think is beautiful and democratic. Having said that, like, okay, I am a bilingual person, but I also write my screenplays in English. You can write your fully finished draft with dialogues in English, and then you can get someone to collaborate with you. So let's say a producer picks your really sound English draft, then they'll get a Hindi writer or somebody to work with you on the dialogues to make it, depending on which market you're releasing it. In fact, it has happened to me. I wrote an wrote a film called Sahela, which I wrote in the English that I knew, and then we adapted it for Australian market for the characters. Then we got Jet on it because she's an Australian. So we got her understanding of the cultural twang, the dialect, etc. And then she did a pass on my
Oh,
job.
nice. Excellent. All right. Next question, Gayatri. She's saying in today's scenario, is the only way for a writer to make money is to go for OTT screenwriting, or is there other methods for pitching, for writing pitch decks for pitching your story for OTTs?
See, OTTs for the longest time, that has been the solution. In the last 3 years, the answer would have been yes. I mean, OTT does give you money for development. There was all these big pockets that had opened up. But lately, the last 8 months, there has been no development happening. Amazon sealed development till 2020, late 2025. Sorry to, I mean, should I give all this information?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So Amazon sealed development for till late 2025. So what I'm trying to say is what it impacts more is the young writer or new writer space. Because now there are less chances of blind development or risks. Because a lot of times what was also happening was there were a lot of, so there, I just will explain the structure, how it works. There is a platform which is the OTT and Netflix and Amazon and the Sony Live and other things, Hotstar. And then there are these small studios, right? And small producers who used to work with some of these studios and then basically became like really known people in industry. They have their own network and leverage and a vision. Then they became smaller producers. So what they would do would, like, let's say, Pavitra, whoever asked the question, you had that story. Let's say I'm the producer and I now know a lot of powerful people in the industry to make things move. I would make you develop that concept with my own money. So that's how you would immediately get paid to put your concept into development with me, but attached to me. I am then the producer on it. Then we would build on it for a year. So maybe, let's say, I would have given you, let's say, yes, I would have given you in the good times that the industry had seen. We would give you anything like, even for a first time writer, if you've done me the whole Bible from F1 to F8 in detail, like you've given me a 120-page stellar Bible, where the story and the characters, etc., and the world building is like exquisite. Maybe I would look at like a 10, 12, 15 lakh sort of like that kind of like figure. And I believe this work is done within a year. Then because I would have the access to, let's say, whoever is the head at Netflix, whoever is the head at Amazon. And then I would like go into those meetings and see if I can get a deal. Now, the minute the platform comes on board, the platform will give us like a development deal where they will give me the producer deal and a development writer's room deal. So then they'll release a big chunk of money. So they'll say, oh, we are going to give you like 1 crore for you to write this whole show, which means then I am in a position to then launch a big room of 4 writers under the Bible, whoever has written the Bible and the concept, depending on how good they are, for example, at writing the screenplay itself. Like if they're are they seasoned screenplay writers? If they're not, then we'll get experts on board. Then we'll make you all collaborate, which in itself is like a very tough place to be at. It's not easy. None of this is easy. All of this takes yours, So, but then that's the marriage we all get into.
Right.
With the idea that we're going to now, because we're getting the money, we're going to write this show. We'll write each episode ka screenplay. We'll have this Bible, and we are all now writing to the vision of what the platform is anchoring us towards. Now, in the meantime, the directors will come on board, the showrunner will come on board. Now, they will also come with their input. So that is why it becomes such a, like a machi bazaar, because it's like you're constantly writing to new briefs. You're like constantly.
Right.
That is where you really have to be on the job. You have to really suck in a lot of the anger and like disappointment and all that, and you have to keep redoing the job, and to stay dispassionate at that makes you the great LA staff writer. That is what it takes to just constantly keep doing what the platform wants. Because once that kind of money comes in, then you have to, walk their talk.
Got it. That's great. Thank you. The next question is from Lee. He's asking, based on your opening comments, I'm curious about your thoughts regarding a recurring debate we have, which is that in order to produce effective and moving literature, does one have to be a tortured soul?
Ask Taylor Swift. I'm not sure if I want to answer that in a yes, because I think that would be unfair on people with varied kind of life experiences. While I do believe that I think everyone has had it tough.
Yes, at some level.
Maybe they are not recognizing it.
Great. All right. Thank you. That's a great, honest response. We've already answered the question about Hindi and English. So what is your advice for someone looking to move into screenwriting as a mid-career shift from corporate to writing? What
It's
can they expect to
totally
encounter in
possible.
Mumbai?
Totally possible. It can happen. Just like don't let go of your. You should have some kind of like a plan B in place. Like, are there enough savings? Is there a partner who will take care of you? Is there like do you come to Bombay, do your meetings and return? You can totally do it. And the best part is after pandemic, we have all gotten used to working, because we were all like, I actually live in Santa Cruz in like I always call myself car trash. I live in the worst houses in Khar and Bandra. So while we all, like everyone I'm working with lives like not more than a kilometer away from me, we still all work on Zoom. So now this is a new addition to our life since pandemic, where it has just become convenient, right? Like, so that is why I feel you can work from everywhere. Having said that, yes, you can't escape the Bombay experience. So you have to come here, spend a lot of time, then go back if you want to. You can totally do it midlife career, of course. Like, in fact, that will make you a much better writer. Can I know the name of this person?
This is for Ashay Abhi. Ashay,
you whatever experiences you've had so far in your life will actually give you an advantage over actually a young writer who just has the chops but has no life experience. You can build from so much life that you may have lived, from the industries that you have been to, from the particular kind of betrayals that you may have gone through. There's so much that you can bring to your writing in terms of, and like, relatability. So I think it's actually nicer to start somewhere a little later. That's just my opinion. Again, it is not something that perhaps, I don't know universally what is the right thing to say about this.
All right, great. So the next question is from Richard Anderson. He's saying, in light of the OTT bubble bursting, etc., how would you recommend a writer with a speculative script to get his script noticed by a publication house in current times? So Richard,
house, you mean what?
Yeah,
like,
that's what my question was. Were you thinking of a book, or are you thinking about a screenplay? Because I don't know if publishing is something that Atika would be able to talk about.
If you mean like, in case you mean a studio or a OTT or a platform, like how to make a film made at this point, because he did use the word screenplay also. I would right now suggest, don't waste time writing a Bible. Instead, write a theatrical, because at least this year onwards, till the market booms again for platforms, I think there's more chance of getting a film made than
a show.
A show made. And that's one tip. The second tip is, if you are a regional writer, guys, you are in for luck, because that is where, go back into your stories from your region, from your language, from your culture. As the more rooted the story is, and the more measured the budget of the film is, it is more likely to get made. And also it will also maintain better standards of telling and of crafting. Like, the quick case in point is everything that's happening in Marathi industry, and everything that's happening in Kerala, in the Malayalam film industry, is a great example of how where there's parity between the actors and the creatives, you can see that their business model is so much more healthy, and it has a ecosystem now built in place, where they are not going to run into like these market crashes like what Bollywood has done to itself. Because it is a very actor-led industry, so सारा पैसा वही खा जाते हैं. So there is nothing left for all of us, and that is why we suddenly go out of work. But if you are a regional writer, then there is I feel it is a better model to like emulate and work towards. So if you have the
Excellent.
studies, go in that direction, don't come here. Like if you
Uh,
want to show, make a show in Malayalam, make a show
Yeah.
in your language for the city that you know.
Okay, here's what we're going to do, Atika, because we have, as per the clock, we have 6 minutes left. I want to ask you a quick set of rapid fire questions, and then what we'll do is, instead of wrapping up at 6 sharp, we'll carry on and cover the rest of the questions. I know if other people, we had committed for 6 o'clock, so if other people need to drop out, maybe we'll see some dropout. But at least we can do the
I can
quick.
do 15 more minutes for sure.
Lovely. That will be great. And for other people also, we can continue with the conversation. But I want to complete the rapid fire with you now. So the rapid fire is exactly what it sounds like. So you don't have to think. You have to give the answers off the top of your head. So first, tell us the name of some of your guilty pleasure films.
Guilty pleasure films.
Yeah.
Hum.
Okay.
Tesab, which is a film.
Right.
I love Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Ram Leela. And
Okay.
every time I say it, everyone hates me, but I love it. I love that film.
All right. Great. Great. Next question. What do you do when you have writer's block?
I wallow but
Okay.
now I have a very easy way of coping with it, in the sense I allow myself to actually have the block. I cook, I start cleaning up the house, and I do other things. The thing that I will advise against when you have a writer's block is to go out party too much, or get get into a bar, or do things that are going to now add to that, which I have done and I have regretted it, because you don't want to add to it. You just want that moment to pass. Like, think of it as a big black cloud. You want it to pass.
Excellent. Have you ever walked out of a movie theater mid-show?
Yes.
And can you name one or two of those movies?
I don't know. I'm definitely pissing off a lot of people, but if it's just 100 people. I saw this film called, there is this Huma Qureshi film where she's playing Tarla Dalal. It's called Tarla only. I have walked out of it. I've never seen anything more obnoxious.
Okay. All right. Tell me one thing you hate and one thing you love about being a screenwriter.
One thing I hate is the fact that I'm so codependent on other people's collaboration, and I have to constantly deal with like a lot of egos, and I have to manage it. And I think that is the best part about the job too.
Makes a lot of sense. Last question. What movie, book, or TV show changed your life? Was there or impacted you very, very strongly personally?
Atonement, the book, English Patient book.
Oh, lovely.
Difficult Daughters is a book I read when I was in college, which I have also managed to adapt somehow. So that's like a very big fantasy that has come to life. It hasn't become a film yet, but hopefully this year. So I have the screenplay. It's a book I read as a 20-year-old in Delhi University, and I always thought I wanted to write this film. And actually, when I became a screenwriter and became slightly known, I tried to get the rights out of Soni Rajdhan's, she held the rights for 20 years. And I went to her and I said, if you're not, it looks like you're not making it, give it to me. And she said, write it for me instead. And we now actually are sitting on a really decent screenplay, and we are like, hope. And Alia has become our producer. So we are hoping.
Oh, wow. Media. Awesome. Great. Okay, great. So that's it formally as far as this FDC is concerned. But we'll continue with the Q&A. We'll go on for another 15 minutes. Folks, I know that we promised 5 to 6. So if you guys need to jump out, I completely understand. But Atika has 15 more minutes. So we'll continue with our Q&A. Yeah. So the next one was somebody saying, do you believe academic studies of writing is useful? For example, did you believe FTII help you refine your craft, help you find work and build a career?
It definitely helps to say that you're from the film school, and because my film school has a really good reputation, does help. Having said that, school में कुछ नहीं सीखा है, इधर ही सीखा है सब कुछ, like.
All right, great. Then can doing an MA in English Lit actually help one become a better informed writer?
Yes.
If yes,
That is a
what
cost.
ways? Asking for someone who comes from a science background. She's asking.
No, but
Which are-
that also doesn't, like, you can write a great science fiction and like it doesn't, while studying literature. I think what I would answer, how I would answer this is, I think reading is far more fruitful to your screenwriting uh, than watching films is, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Reading is going to give you like a repertoire of like, or a library of image making, because you are forced to make images when you read. So
Yes.
you're literally using your brain to make images. Your brain is automatically doing the shot breakdown, right? Each time you imagine a character in a room, so you are actually screenwriting on the go. That is why reading is far more healthy for a screenwriter than is watching other films. While if you watch films, also this is the other thing that I want to do in my course. People watch films really passively. As a
Right.
screenwriter, that's not how you watch a film. So I would like to help you break down a screenplay from film. I'll also like want you to understand how to read a screenplay. When you read a screenplay or shooting draft, what do you read? How do you read?
Sure.
So
Sure.
that, I think that's where so many things are not right about that. These are good, I think, good hacks to develop, something that I could only develop after what, 16 years and doing this, getting like rogered everywhere. So I think it will be nice for me to help you sort of quickly point out these are the common mistakes that people make.
Okay. This next question is, it's kind of longish question, but I'll read it out and then you can see, maybe you want to answer a part of it. So I feel like when compared to a novel, a script is more dialogue centric and less thought centric, or there's a lot less direct narration by the author. Does this place less pressure on a screenwriter when it comes to censorship? Because whatever you write is for a character and is spoken by a character, and there's less general narration, background narration. Does that protect a screenwriter more?
This is because you see Hindi films maybe, and that's how you think. That's why you think this film is so like crutched on dialogues. But that's not the sign of a good screenplay. That's perhaps a good mainstream screenplay, because we do have to externalize drama for a Hindi audience. But that's not the sign of a good screenplay. Actually, dialogue is, I mean, that's how I look at dialogue. A dialogue is never supposed to be taken for literally for what it is.
Yeah.
A dialogue is always a red herring, or to be used as it's not, anyway, the need of a dialogue is not to give you information. A visual gives you information.
Yeah. So there's always layers, and I think that layering and how to write layered dialogue itself is a craft which is not something you learn overnight.
Yeah, so dialogue, if you look at dialogue as anything outside of screenplay itself, which a lot of Hindi films do, and then you learn from those films, then you ask this question.
Right. Okay. There's a question. I don't know if you could really answer that on a chat like this, but how to make a historical character or a character from a different generation gender sensitive? That's a very wide question.
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. You can make them gender sensitive. No, if you can make the scene gender sensitive by how their gender insensitivity is being received by others. So if you let the room acknowledge it, or let your story acknowledge it in a way, or if there is an awakening for this character that you have kind of like sort of decided for this arc, then you can deal with it. Like you can use it. This is a great, these are the things that make a film really special.
Right. Niyati has a question, which it's about non-fiction writing, so I'm not sure how it fits, but while writing non-fiction that is personal, how does one navigate the blind spots that one may be hiding from? Do you recommend any writing exercises for that, or introspection techniques? I think she means while writing fiction that is personal, because if it is non-fiction, then it won't apply.
I don't think I think you don't have to think about the blind spots at all. If it's very personal, this is the formula at work. It comes into being by itself. If it's something really deeply, truly personal, it will become universal.
Right.
It's a law. Think of it as a law. It automatically happens. अगर तुमने सच में वो जिया है, तो वो humanly other people will relate to it.
Right. Swati's question you've already answered in terms of atonement and Fight Club, etc., etc. She's asking what your favorite books and writers. Next is Tara Bhatnagar. She's saying, how important are writers' rooms for screenplay writing? Do too many cooks spoil the broth, or is it a preferred method of writing? You've
It,
again sort of answered, but go
yeah,
ahead.
it is very tough. It is a tough. It is going to be a tough place. It is, think of it as like a war room. Having said that, there is no way out of it because you have to collaborate with others. You cannot possibly write dramas that are spilling into multiple seasons just on your own. You can't. And the writer of Bridgerton, who's like 80-year-old and like is some kind of like a beast. Most of us need each other. So
Right.
that is why you have to learn to collaborate and tolerate. That's the way.
Right. And maybe the FDC, well, we're not exactly a writer's room, but we are more like 100 writers writing our own thing, but you have each other available, so it's a sort of network or a community. Yeah.
Yes, and all this is a gift. Each person you hate the most right now in this group is a person who's a teacher to you, and it's a teacher that's awakening into you something about your own self. There is an ego that is getting tested, something about what you don't want to learn. Each of whatever it is happening right now, you will not understand it now, but in the next 5 years or 10 years, or perhaps some point in your life, you will be thankful to this person.
So this is the very first session of the FDC. So we don't know each other well enough to hate each other yet, but maybe by the fifth Sunday we'll get somewhere.
Yeah, but
right.
Don't hold back. It's like I'm really glad you guys met me because I'm so outspoken as your first expert. Go ahead and like rip each other apart. Don't hold it back. Like, yes, of course you can be polite. This is not personal. But if you don't do it, then why the hell have you participated in this? Let other people like, say things which may sound insensitive.
Right. Okay. A small question. Gayatri has, what is a theatrical? You'd mentioned a theatrical. Is that a format somewhere on the internet?
Theater mein release hota hai.
Acha. Okay. So that's a theatrical. So I don't think there's a separate format for it then, Gayatri. Simi has an interesting question. I'm a writer stuck in the first draft of a feature film script dealing with the infuriating curse of the second half. Do you have any advice on navigating scenes that are too montagey because the second half is a bit action heavy?
There's something about the principal character's arc that you're not possibly getting right. What you can do is wherever you are stuck, don't go further. Go back into the beat sheet. I'm sure this person knows what I'm saying. Go back into beat sheet stage. Do a one-liner again. Try to arc it from the perspective of the character and her journey, and then go back into redesigning the scenes. If that means you have to change your first half, you will have to. Normally, I've noticed, as this is a very, again, like one of those experiential hacks that I know. If your third act is not working, it's because your first act is wrong.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, that's great advice. So you go into the backstory, figure out your character motivations, things like that. Right. Okay. You spoke about opportunities for regional writers and stories with Marathi Malayali film seeing a resurgence. At the same time, when it comes to OTT, there are some geographies that seem to suffer from a storytelling vacuum. So, for example, none of us might recollect films based on Odisha or Sikkim. So, could it be down to the fact that stories from those regions do not have a market yet, or what's going on there?
It's yes, for sure. Like there is that the mainstream oblivion, but then there was similar sort of thing about stories about women, right? Like so, or then stories about queer people. So all of that has got addressed. So it is a war that is being fought. If you are the person who feels really actively about strongly about this, then make some proactive changes by actually being that person who writes this story, then takes it through. So you have to be the, instead of me wanting to appropriate it from the person who comes from a certain region, I would want them to go ahead, write their own stories. And yes, it will have less chances, but if it's written well, then this is the only time when it will get a chance. So while I mean I do agree कि वो नहीं होगा, नॉर्थ ईस्ट का स्टोरी को मेन स्ट्रीम में डालना मुश्किल है,
Right.
But hoga, matlab, if we'll find our way, hoga.
There is the occasional film that makes it to the big time, but those are few and far between. The next question is, how important is self-belief as a writer? What does one do if their skill is decent, but they lack self-belief?
That's true for every writer. And the minute the writer becomes really confident, that's the death of writing. Because there is no, you can't, you will always feel inadequate, because actually, if you know so much, you can never feel confident. And if you do, you can only feel confident about the completion of a project. That's all that you can feel confident, satisfied about. You can never feel confident about how good you were, because as you will grow, you will realize that that's just true for me. Every project that I've been on, I know how much I suck and how better I would have done it now with my current skills. So that day, according to me, will never come. You will always feel shitty.
It's like Zen Buddhism or spiritualism that,
Yes,
when the moment you know, you actually, when you know, you realize you don't. So sort of like that.
Correct.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct.
Where do you?
Very, really big part, I feel, in coping with a lot of uncertainty and instability in the line that we are in.
Right. Where do you draw the line between the style of your writing / creativity and being objective? I don't know if
someone else draws the line for you.
In screenwriting, absolutely. So yeah. Have you ever had to deal with plagiarism? And if yes, then how did you handle it?
I mean, terrible things have happened. This is not the forum to talk about it, but it's very tough. And yeah, I mean, now is the time that I'm seeing right now is much better than what it used to be. So I would say really protect your stuff. Don't send it to strangers. Send it on email. Yeah, just protect yourself. There are so many more means available now to protect yourself. Like you can't blame now the other person, because your ignorance is totally your fault, right? Like, but you can't say कि वो इतने conniving है या mean है. वो तो है ही. मतलब that's just a given.
Right. Naveen has a question, which is it important to start screenplay writing with a climax or ending? How do you find an ending of situation-based story?
You have to just you have to just accept, Naveen, that I know Naveen, so hi Naveen. You just have to accept. I feel while it may be easy for me to say this right now because I understand how painful this is, but you just have to accept that this is an ever evolving situation. So what you have to learn to move with is that this is a process. What you're committed to is a process. Your ending will change many times. The minute you open yourself to that possibility, I think you go into it with more surrender, and then you enjoy the process more. Like be a little more playful about, and don't you don't have to commit so early to the end. I sometimes feel an end could be nothing but a small flourish. But what's more important is how you're arriving there. So are you very satisfactorily participating in the beat escalation till the climax? Because you would know if you were to do that exercise really well, where that end is. And then the end may not seem like that big a deal. So many times I have actually worked on narratives which I started from a certain, like, this was my point A, this was my point B. But by the time we ended up doing like over 15 drafts, it was a full ship of Theseus experience, if you know what I mean. Like every part of it was removed and it was just replaced with something else. And then it was a completely new beast altogether. And that's just exactly what the process is. So I know how frustrating, while I do believe that working backwards from the end is also it's a great way to dive into the story, because it's a route that we know. Having said that, once you are inside it and then it gets a little unwieldy, or the other thing that I'll tell all writers, anything that's feeling too easy, guys, is probably not right.
All right, great. I'm going to rephrase Ashni's question. So is Wikipedia entry for a movie accurate, or is there a better place to look at credits? Because she's mentioned that your name is not on the Wikipedia entry, but Wikipedia is always a little So I'm wondering.
Wikipedia entry for what? Like my films have my names on some of the
So
Wikipedia.
evidently, the Wikipedia entry for Margarita with a Straw doesn't mention you as a writer, but Wikipedia is not the seminal source, right?
The writers of that film may not have put me on it. I'm on IMDb, and IMDb is, I think, the more accurate film directory.
More reliable, absolutely. Yeah, okay. Then does SWA membership help with stopping plagiarism?
Yes, it does. It helps.
All right, great. Great. All right. And I think, Radhika, your question has already been answered. Great. So let's wrap up this evening. Thank you so much again, Atika. Longish day for you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in September.
Yes.
Then I will show you the reality of what you think is a castle, and then we'll go from there.
Everyone in Bombay thinks I'm going for this really high polluting residency, and I'm just like also allowing them to believe that, because I'm like,
So it's fun. We have a nice place, but it's not a
of
castle.
course
by
you
any
have a
stretch
nice
of the
place.
imagination. And lots of people who are actually in this were there for the last week. Lots of CWC participants. Swati was there, and lots of other people. So yeah, it's always fun, and you stay connected with some of those participants for years after that. So looking forward. All right, thank you so much. It's been fantastic.
I really envy all of you. You're getting to do this. It's so exciting. All the best with all that you're doing. I hope to see all of you come out with your films and novels, and meet you in person someday. So yeah.
That will be awesome. Thank you so much, Atika. Thanks. It's amazing to have had this.
Bye. There's some compliments coming from me. Can you quickly read them?
Yes. Lots and lots of compliments. They've been coming for a while.
Oh, can I, before you, if you will cut the Zoom, then I won't be able to read them.
Please read. And
So
I'll be happy to share the transcript.
Log out if they want to. I'll just read them. So yeah.
Absolutely true, all of it. Been wonderful.
Forced to make images when you read. What a great line. मुझे खुद ही नहीं पता चलता है कि मैं great lines बोलती हूँ. इससे उसकी zone में निकल जाता है वो. But yeah, reading that way is one of the easiest brain workout that you do. Sit down with a book for 45 minutes. This is something I do if every time I go in a slump, and I get I always wake up with a low grade depression, and I mean it a little loosely. It's not clinical, and I don't mean disrespect to people who have it, but I think I have a tendency to right now I'm maybe looking like a really chirpy person, put together person, but as all writers in this room would understand, there is also that spectrum, the other side of it, that's always there, right? We all feel so low and we wallow. So I wake up with a morbid mood. That's just my personality. And I have to do something to charge myself up. So in the morning, so many times when it's very difficult to believe in why you should do this today. You fucking die. What's the point? You take a book and you give yourself 45 minutes and read out loudly to yourself. Believe me, each time it is better than eating a Nashwagandha tablet. That's the only thing that charges your brain, because it stimulates it, and the sound of good words inspire you and make you believe on it. It answers that question, why should I do it again? So when you hear those words, and 45 minutes of out loud reading can do wonders. So use that as a hack. I do it. So I know that some writers don't need this. Not every writer is built this way. But in case this helps.
Sure. Jairam is saying epic advice. I'm going to start practicing this.
Yes.
And it's good.
Jairam, right? Please
Yes.
let me know if it works. I have heard my friends say that it did work. I also actually picked this in another, like I was hearing a YouTube conversation of somebody who was using this as a way of sharpening memory.
Okay.
But that somehow as a device helped me build stimulation for my work.
Okay.
Don't talk to other people. Talk to the book.
Lovely. Lovely. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is great session. Somebody wanted to ask. Yeah, okay. I think we have pretty much answered. I've also mostly most people think I'm candid.
Right. All right. Chali, I will see you in September on the 4th.
Yes.
And then we will go from there. All right. Take care.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you again. Bye, Atika.